Come on in. I've been expecting you.
Sergeant. I'm sorry. I was delayed at the hospital. I hope I'm not too late.
Oh, that's all right. Come, let me show you the house.
Oh, first things first. You need a ramp.
Oh, yes, I was wondering about that.
You can put one right over the front steps.
You do realize that Rod said he was going to walk into this house.
Get a ramp. There's a rental agency in White River.
Well, I don't think you quite understand how important it is for Rod to be able to walk in. I realize that he'll need some kind of a support, but a wheelchair would be wrong.
I understand, Miss Harrington. No, really, I do. Look, I've been working with that husband of yours for a long time, and I know how much he's been thinking about walking in here on his own power.
Well, then, if you do...
All right. If he can make the steps, fine. But the ramp goes in.
Well, I suppose you're right. Come on, I'll show you the rest of the house.
Oh, that's a beautiful painting of you, Miss Harrington. You know, it's like most paintings. It doesn't quite look like you.
Excuse me. Shouldn't we continue this grand tour? Here is the living room. We'll eat over there, and that's the kitchen. As you can see, there isn't much for Rod to navigate.
It's fine. It's real good. It's compact.
We sleep right up there.
Oh, no.
The steps are pretty steep, huh?
It's impossible. All right, look, we'll concentrate on this area. Okay, look, we can make it comfortable. Let's get this sofa out of the way and this, whatever, and we can put a bed right in here.
No, I think that the bed should go right back here. Now, this way it wouldn't look so conspicuous.
No, won't work.
Why?
There's not enough fresh air.
You certainly don't think Rod should be on top of the window. He'll catch cold.
Well, he's used to a lot of air. In the hospital, he sleeps with the windows wide open every night. And don't forget, those rooms are very small.
Yes, you're right. I'll get someone to move that bed down here. I guess it won't look too bad if I can put a lot of cushions on it.
You know, I wouldn't go to the trouble of moving that big bed down here.
Well, that happens to be the only bed that we have.
If I can make a suggestion, I'd call that rental agency tomorrow and tell them to send you a regular hospital bed with the ramp.
A hospital bed?
It's your best bet. It's efficient. It's comfortable. Rod's used to it.
No, I don't think that's a good idea at all. Besides, it'll look terrible.
I wouldn't worry about how it looks.
Well, I'm sure you wouldn't, Mr. Atwell. But maybe that's because you're his therapist and not his wife.
Oh?
Don't you realize that Rod is sick and tired of being in a hospital? Or hasn't it occurred to you that one of the reasons he wants to come home is so that he can get away from small rooms and hospital beds and hospital routines?
Yeah, but I thought you'd want what was best for him.
I do, but I don't want to keep reminding him of his handicap every minute of the day and night.
Okay. But Rod has a definite program which I laid down for him, and it's my understanding that he's going to stick to it just like he would in the hospital.
Well, I certainly hope your program doesn't include turning our home into an infirmary or a barracks.
Anything you want, Miss Harrington. Look, it's getting a little late, and I think I've seen everything I need to. I'll leave this card here for you. It's a rental agency now. You call them, and you make whatever arrangements you want.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
More coffee?
Mm-mm. More brandy?
Mm-hmm.
All right, come and get it.
I'll forget what I came for.
It's Mrs. Harrington.
Mrs. Harrington. And how are you, Mrs. Harrington?
I hope I haven't interrupted your dinner.
Well, I'm afraid you've interrupted more than my dinner.
Oh.
But it doesn't matter. You happy with your portrait?
I always have been. It's good to have it back. Stephen...
You were saying?
I've come to ask you for another favor.
Oh? Well, what is it this time? I can't think of any other souvenirs from our brief but interesting marriage.
I want this house.
Well, you've wanted this house since the day you were born.
I'm asking you to sell it to me.
It's not for sale.
Well, there's really no reason for you to hold on to it anymore. I mean, you've made your point. You've sat in your grandfather's chair, you've sipped his brandy, and you've looked down on the world around you. Now, what's left to prove?
Rod hates this house. He's lived most of these past few years trying desperately to get away from it.
I think I understand my husband.
I hope you do. He worked so hard at breaking the old man's grip. And now returning here to all these memories.
Stephen, this house was a symbol to you. Now, you don't need a symbol anymore. Your grandfather's dead. Now, everyone knows how important you are.
The little girl with the big, hungry eyes. Little girl with the big daydreams. Named Betty Anderson Harrington Cord.
Stephen.
And Harrington again. Well, that's quite a mouthful. Smacks of ambition. With overtones of, if at first you don't succeed.
Thanks.
Well, you already have my answer. No. And I won't change my mind. What about the honeymoon cottage?
We loved it.
Briefly, but well.
But maybe it doesn't fit into our present needs.
Or your future pocketbook.
The bedroom is in a loft up a steep flight of stairs. Now, Rod couldn't possibly manage them.
Well, then move it down to the living room.
That would make it terribly crowded.
Then move to a larger house. Look, why don't you buy one of those ranch homes they built over by the golf course? Well, they're not much style, but they've got plenty of floor space. And no stairs.
Stephen, this can only be a white elephant to you.
You'd be surprised.
Well, I could understand when your grandfather was alive. I mean, your living here was a way of getting back at him. But now that he's gone...
Unfortunately, I'm sentimental as well as vindictive. We were married in this room. You and I.
That's over and done. You'd be better off someplace where you could forget these memories.
Thanks for the advice.
Stephen, this huge old place must be a terrible burden to you financially.
You can always float alone.
Oh. I didn't know ministers could afford that kind of alimony.
I was born into money. I didn't have to marry it.
Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about your father. But I'm sure other people haven't. You seem to have, made yourself quite at home here.
Oh, I have. Thoroughly and completely. I'm even allowed to select the paintings. Do you like it?
No, it's not quite my taste.
I didn't think you'd like it. The other one was much more flattering. I told Stephen when I brought this one home that it somehow reminded me of your portrait. Just a little.
Well, I didn't agree.
That's why I bought it. Tell me something, Mrs. Harrington. Why do you want to live up here on top of the hill?
To look down.
For Rod's sake.
Well, I think I can understand that. She wants to be able to sit by this fire and tell her children stories about Grandma Catherine, who gave away only 2 of her children and then did her husband's girlfriend in. And then there was Grandfather Leslie, who just hated to see great-grandpapa Peyton linger on needlessly once he learned what the provisions of the will were. And, oh, yes, of course, there was half-Uncle Stephen, who used to be married to Mumsy, mind you.
All right, Susan.
Well, I think it's charming. Charming, charming past. Mrs. Harrington, what are you trying to prove? I mean, you have Stephen's grandfather's money. Why do you find it necessary to rub his nose in it?
Susan.
Stephen, it's all right. I'm sure Mrs. Winter is, only quoting.
I have a suggestion. If you really are so eager to live in the Peyton mansion, why don't you buy another hill and put up a carbon copy?
But that wouldn't be the same, now would it, Betty?
Well, you could put in solid gold plumbing and diamond chandeliers. Make it a whole story higher.
Now, Rodney couldn't have changed his mind about this house. It held too much meaning for him. Mainly a form of imprisonment. Like an enormous jail.
Let me tell you something, darling, about the fair and gentle sex. The lady wants the rainbow, the pot at the end of the rainbow, and all the land under the rainbow. And you, my darling, are standing in the way.
Preview from the continuing story of Peyton Place.
I'll go home with you when I have your promise you won't interfere in your brother's marriage. Nobody has the right to come between two people who love each other.
Betty married Rod to get grandfather's money.
That's what you keep saying.
I don't understand. I don't understand at all.
You're asking me to choose between you and my daughter. And that is an impossible...